You know that friend who always cancels plans? The one who is sick again, tired again, or maybe suggests next time for the third month in a row? That friend isn't avoiding you. They are protecting something. If you are someone who genuinely gets more excited about a Friday night in pajamas than a Friday night out, welcome. You're about to feel very seen. Today, we are breaking down the psychology of people who love staying at home, the ones society calls boring, but science calls something else entirely. The common misconception is that homebodies are just shy, antisocial, or perhaps even lazy. But when we look at the neurobiology of personality, we find a much deeper, more sophisticated story. For decades, Western culture has built a monument to the extrovert. We reward the go-getter, the life of the party, and the person with the packed social calendar. But underneath the surface of this cultural preference lies a biological reality that many people ignore. Not everyone's brain processes the world in the same way. To understand why some people find a quiet living room more intoxicating than a loud concert, we have to look at the chemistry of the brain specifically, a chemical called dopamine. Most people think of dopamine as the pleasure chemical, but it's actually the reward chemical. It's what motivates us to seek out new things. Extroverts have a high threshold for dopamine. Their brains aren't very sensitive to it, so they need a lot of stimulation, loud music, new faces, risky ventures, to feel that hit of satisfaction. But for the person who loves staying home, the brain is wired differently. They are more sensitive to dopamine, meaning they get overloaded very quickly. Instead, they often rely more on a different neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is also linked to pleasure, but it's a different kind. It's the feeling you get when you're turning inward, reflecting, or focusing deeply on a single task. It's the calm pleasure. While the extrovert is out chasing a dopamine high, the homebody is at home soaking in an acetylcholine glow. This leads us to optimal arousal theory. Think of your brain like a radio. Some people are born with their volume knob turned all the way down. They need the world to be loud just to feel awake. But the home lover is born with their volume already at an 8 or 9. For them, a quiet room is a beautiful melody, but a crowded bar is literal feedback screaming through a speaker. It isn't that they can't handle the world, it's that their nervous system is already full. They don't stay home to do nothing. They stay home to keep from being overwhelmed by the everything. There is also a powerful element of control at play. The world outside is inherently unpredictable. It is full of loud strangers, traffic, last-minute schedule changes, and the exhausting performance of small talk. Small talk is particularly draining for this personality type because it requires a high amount of cognitive monitoring without providing any real emotional fuel. At home, however, you are the architect. You control the lighting, the temperature, the scent, and the vibe. For people with high sensory sensitivity, or what psychologists call sensory processing sensitivity, this control isn't a luxury, it's survival. It is the difference between feeling like a person and feeling like a frayed wire. If you've ever felt a physical sense of relief when a plan gets canceled, a phenomenon some call the joy of missing out, or JOMOth, that is your nervous system literally resetting itself. It's the feeling of a heavy weight being lifted off your chest. This isn't a sign of a character flaw. It's a sign of self-regulation. You are listening to what your body needs. Research also shows that people who enjoy solitude often possess a specific type of sensory intelligence. They are more introspective, more creative, and better at complex problem solving. This is because staying home creates an environment for incubation. The best ideas usually aren't born in a networking mixer or a nightclub. They are born in the quiet corners of a room, during a deep dive into a book, or in a thought spiral at 2 a.m. when you are alone. Your brain enters what is known as the default mode network. This is the state where the brain starts making connections between seemingly unrelated ideas. It is where aha moments happen. But there's a paradox here. Even though staying home is scientifically linked to creativity and mental restoration, society still attaches a loneliness stigma to it. We are taught that being alone is a deficit. We are told that if we aren't out there making memories, we are wasting our lives. But what if your best life is a documentary, a bowl of soup, and zero obligations? That isn't sad. That is a profound level of self-awareness. It's the realization that you don't need to be seen by the world to exist. We also have to consider the digital age. In the past, staying home meant being cut off from information. Today, staying home can mean an intense journey through history, art, or science via the internet. For the digital homebody, the four walls of their room are a gateway, not a barrier. They can travel the world through a screen without the sensory assault of an airport. This has created a new class of people who are socially active but physically solitary. However, we have to be honest. There can be a darker side to the four walls of a house. For some, home isn't a sanctuary. It's a cage. When staying home is driven by social anxiety, past trauma, or the quiet, heavy whisper of depression, the refuge begins to shrink. This is what psychologists call avoidant coping. It feels like safety in the short term, but in the long term, it makes the outside world feel scarier and scarier. The critical question to ask yourself is, do you stay home because it fills you up, or because leaving feels too heavy? One is peace, the other is hiding. If you're staying home because you love your own company, that's strength. If you're staying home because you're afraid of what might happen if you don't, that's a signal that your safe space might be becoming a prison. For those who truly find peace at home, they aren't missing out on life, they're just living it differently. They find joy in small, rhythmic rituals that most people rush past. There is a specific kind of mindfulness that only happens at home, the way the morning light hits a specific chair, the precise routine of making coffee, the comforting weight of a favorite blanket, the way the house sounds when everyone else is asleep. These aren't just chores or habits, they are anchors. They ground you in a world that is constantly trying to pull you in 1,000 different directions. These individuals are often the ones who notice the things others miss. Because they aren't constantly seeking the next big thrill, they have the bandwidth to notice the subtle beauty in the mundane. They are wired for depth over noise. They would rather have one deep conversation than 50 how's the weather exchanges. They would rather rewatch a comfort show that they've seen 10 times because it provides a predictable, emotional arc that allows their brain to truly rest. Psychologists often refer to this as a low-stimulation preference. These people don't need the world to entertain them because their inner world is rich enough to provide its own entertainment. They are their own best company. In a world that is constantly screaming for your attention, adverts, notifications, social pressures, the ability to be alone and happy is a superpower. It means you are not dependent on external validation to feel okay. Think about the influencer culture we live in today. It's all about the party pics and the live your best life highlight reels. It's a culture of performance, but staying home is the ultimate act of non-performance. You don't have to dress up, you don't have to smile for the camera, and you don't have to monitor your tone of voice. You can just be. For many, that is the only time they feel like their true selves. So, if you are the person who turns down invitations without a shred of guilt, or who feels a genuine surge of dopamine when a plan gets canceled, you aren't broken. You aren't weird. You are simply honoring the way your brain is built. You've realized that the most interesting person you can spend time with is often yourself, and the best place to do it is right where you are. The homebody isn't a recluse. They are a connoisseur of their own environment. They understand that life isn't just about the miles you travel or the people you meet. It's about the quality of the thoughts you have and the peace you find in your own skin. They have mastered the art of doing nothing, which, in our hyperproductive society, is perhaps the most radical thing you can do. As we look toward a future that is increasingly fast-paced and technologically demanding, the stay-at-home psychology will likely become even more important. It serves as a counterweight to the burnout culture. It reminds us that rest is not a reward for hard work. It is a prerequisite for a healthy life. It reminds us that home isn't just a place to sleep, it's a sanctuary for the soul. Tell me, do you prefer staying home because it recharges your soul, or do you think we've become a society of people making excuses to avoid the meannesses of real-world connection? Is your home a charger or a bunker? Understanding the difference is the key to mastering your own mental health. If you've found yourself nodding along to this, you're part of a silent global tribe. You are the people who keep the world grounded. You are the deep thinkers, the quiet creators, and the ones who know that sometimes the most adventurous journey you can take is the one that happens while you're sitting perfectly still. But there is a specific reason why some people feel this way more than others, and it goes back to something that happened in your brain before you were even born. If you want to understand the secret higher activity psychology that explains why some babies grow up to be homebodies while others grow up to be thrill seekers, the next deep dive into temperamental mapping is going to hit you harder than this one. You'll finally understand why you've always felt different. Would you like me to break down how your childhood temperament actually dictated your social battery as an adult?